Blake, what would your response be if I suddenly started bullying you?
Welcome to the club. Here's your membership card.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who was bullied so much in middle school that I literally couldn't care less what anyone says to me now. And I'm here with my boss, who is the biggest bully I've ever met, Toby Walters.
So when you say welcome to the club, here is your membership card, is that you meaning that, like, I bully everybody, welcome to the club, or you bully everyone, so welcome to the club?
No, it's the Blake Bullying Buddies Club, and everyone does it, so everyone gets to join the club, get a membership card.
That's true. Now, you have told me that as long as you're getting a laugh, you're cool with it.
Oh, if people are laughing, I'm good with it. Funny enough, I wonder if I've ever told you this to my boss. I don't care what anyone thinks about me personally. It's like zero. But I care 200%, this is too much power to give you, about doing a good job at my job. So like, if I feel like I'm doing a good job at work, I do not care what anyone says in my personal life because I feel like I've already accomplished what I needed to do.
So if personally I think you suck at your job, I should...
If personally you think I suck at my job, but business-wise you think I'm good at my job, I'm good with it. Like at an annual review, if you actually said I sucked at something, that would hit double because I don't care what people say.
Okay.
But I do care that I do a good job at work.
Now I know how to cut you deep.
Well, hey, don't mess with that because I will take that personally.
Well, speaking of bullying, I have two kids, and one is in 7th grade, and the other's in 5th grade. So we've talked a lot about bullying recently. And even at the dinner table last night.
Kids are growing up so fast.
I know. It's crazy. So my 7th grade daughter, she had her best friend over. And so 2 7th grade girls are trying to explain to my 5th grade son what it's going to be like when he gets to middle school.
The second you walk in the door, they just punch you in the face.
So they said some hilarious things like, for the first couple months when you get there, everybody's on even playing ground. But then after that, they start to divide up into like social hierarchies. And the easiest way to get into the popular crowd, do you have a guess?
Is to be a bully?
No, is to be tall.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, most of the U.S. presidents are tall. Like almost every time 2 candidates go against each other, the tall one wins.
And my son is in the 90th percentile right now. I assume he'll slow down a little bit.
Okay, I got a hot take. Every time I've ever heard someone's kid growing, it's typically babies, they're always like 99.9 percentile. It means nothing to me now. I feel like everyone is the tallest percentile there always is.
Are you done ripping on my 5th grade son?
I'm not ripping on him. I'm saying the concept of percentiles is stupid because I've only ever heard 90 above. Anyways.
So, we're explaining to him, and I think this is good advice for every parent. When you name your child something, especially a boy, mostly a boy, just think of all the ways in which other middle school boys will tweak their name to make fun of them.
Oh, I've already got that on lock.
So I had a conversation just a couple weeks ago with my son saying, all right, son, I need to prepare you for this. And I'm not going to say the word, but I told him, like, this is what they're going to call you because it's very close to what your name is. And he said, what's that? And I explained what it was. And I said, it's not an appropriate word. It's not something you should be repeating. And so last night at dinner, he's like, oh, yeah, Daddy told me this word. And he starts saying the word. And Shelly's like, stop talking.
Has he... Okay, you got to let me know when they first call him that because I want to see how prophetic that is. You're probably going to be right.
I know. Well, it's so easy, and it's so obvious that will happen. But also recently, we gave our daughter a phone. She's in 7th grade.
This is a scary moment for a parent.
It's
genuinely,
it's horrifying.
That sounds like the scariest part of parenting.
And so she got our old iPhone, and we basically took everything off except you can call and text. Like, that's all she can do. And luckily, I love my daughter so much. Like, she could care less about the phone.
That's great. You've got a good kid, Toby.
She walks in and she puts it on the front table, and like her friends will text my wife to say, like, can you tell Molly to get back to me? She won't check her phone. So anyways.
She's not like her father. Toby's very responsive.
Yeah, I have to be because you're so annoying.
Well, you love it. You're addicted to it.
So we put, in order to give her the phone, my wife wanted to make sure that we had like, safe parameters on there. And there's a software called Bark. And have you heard of that?
I haven't.
It's an app it's a monitoring app, and a lot of parents are using it for their kids. It, checks all sorts of things like inappropriate content online, and it even checks for bullying. It'll flag bullying if it sees it in messages or wherever. And so the first week, my wife gets a report, and my daughter's phone got flagged for bullying.
Like she was bullying or bullying was happening?
So my wife comes to me and she says, our daughter's phone got flagged for bullying. And do you want to know who was bullying her? And I'm like, who? It was me.
What did you say?
I got flagged for bullying for threatening to kill her dog.
Well, that's a pretty big threat, Toby. Oh my gosh. You want to know how I've got the kid thing figured out? I'm going to name my kid Holloway, and then they'll call him Holla. And so
no.
Yes.
They'll just call him Loser at that point. It won't even be creative.
There's nothing to spin on Holloway. Like it's locked. It's perfect.
Do you forget being in middle school? Like
They'll
find a way.
Middle school is so bad. When people tell me they're like our buddy Will Brown, who's a middle school pastor, I'm like, why do you do this? Anyone who works in middle school, ministry, or school is a crazy person.
I mean, I won't say it again, but I've already thought of a way to mock your son by rhyming his name.
Oh, this is perfect. All right,
Yep.
We'll do it after.
Okay.
Speaking of someone that I would never mock because I have too much respect for him.
Although he was bullying us a little bit before we press record.
Well, and to be honest, isn't that how we like our guest?
Kind of.
The co-founder at Sunday Social, Jonathan Malm. Jonathan, what
Hello.
were you called? And what did they do to your names in middle school?
And this is technically a Christian podcast, so be careful.
No, so I mean, my last name is Malm. What do you think they called me?
Balls?
Balm?
No, Mom. Like
Jonathan
that's-
Malm?
I mean, it's like just the dumbest stuff. Like, you gonna send me to my room now, Mom? Like,
Oh, that's fun.
no, it's not. Okay, I'm still going to counseling for this. Okay.
Okay, let's go through our names. I was called Blacob, which doesn't even, like, there's no phonetic way to get there, but dude, it pissed me off so much. I still would punch that guy in the face if I had the chance right now.
So mine was so dumb as well, and I won't say it, but everybody can figure it out. So my real name is Tobias. So if you just stress the A a little bit differently, you get a different word.
Every time I remember your name is Tobias, it freaks me out.
I know.
You're not a Tobias.
I am a Tobias.
Well,
That makes me think of Arrested Development, and I don't know.
no.
Such good character.
I am a never nude, so that fits.
Well, I think Toby is the opposite of the never nude. Okay.
I'm always.
No. Can we call HR? Is that a?
I know you can't see below the Zoom on this.
Jonathan, if you knew the things I put up with.
Ugh.
All right. So let's see if we can put up with his lie here. Number 1, I've been attacked by monkeys 4 different times.
He's been bullied. See?
re-
It's right there.
Does it count as bullying if it's not another human?
Perhaps. And if this is true, this is now the second time on this podcast where we've talked about monkeys like
Hurting people?
hurting people.
Number 2, I once traveled 4 days to be in India for 24 hours. I hope that's not true because that sounds awful.
That does sound terrible.
Number 3, I broke into a house when I was 6.
What if it was his house? He's like, he forgot his key when he was walking home from school.
Well, he's the mom of all houses, so he's good. Number 4, I modeled in a French magazine.
That's got to be true. Look at the
Again,
guy.
another repeating thing. All these church texts are childhood models.
Well, he's so pretty.
He does. Number 5, I started both a forest fire and a fire in a field as a kid.
How are those separate things?
Well, I guess there's like a field that then leads to a forest. So, Jonathan, I don't know if you should admit to arson, but if you did do that, I've got a gig for you. Number 6, I accidentally went to the premiere event of Star Wars Episode 1 in England.
Accidentally. Blake, didn't you say you stumbled
I accidentally
into
stumbled into the Rogue One premiere in California
There
the
you
one
go.
time I ever went there.
Man, did you guys just become best friends?
Maybe. Well, he just became my mom. So, which my mom is on a cruise and I haven't been able to talk to her for weeks. So I'm very sad. Okay, Toby, what do you feel is the lie here?
I'm going to go with the modeled in a French magazine. It feels like it's thematically different than the rest.
Man, Toby, that sounded really smart for you. I'm gonna say it was the forest fire. Maybe it was a forest fire, but not a field. All right, Jonathan, hit us with your lie. We're locked in.
It was my friends who started the fires, but it wasn't me.
So I got it. Suck it, Toby.
You got it.
Shut up, Blake.
There were two separate instances of fires. One was a field fire, and then one was a forest fire. So
you had some really good friends growing
How
up.
much damage did you cause?
great friends. I was a little bit of a pyro, but I was not involved in those instances. So
One time we had in youth group, we had like small group at my house, and then we broke off into like prayer partners. And so me and my buddy Nathan went into my brother's room, and he had one of those halogen lamps, and up, it's like it's tall, and then at the top it has a halogen light that goes up into like a little, what is that called?
I don't
Upside
know, man.
down, or
Was
in
it
a
born in
bowl.
the 60s?
So he took our prayer sheet, which was green, and he put it on top of the light, and he's like, "Oh, look, it makes the room green." And we're like, "That's super cool." And then as we're praying, like 37 seconds later, we're like, "What's that
Tongues of fire
smell?"
were resting on you.
Yes.
Look, it's just the burning bush, Toby. Maybe God was going to talk to you. You might have missed out. So tell us about getting attacked by four monkeys, or 4 different times.
4 separate instances. So
What?
my dad we were missionaries in Guatemala when I was a kid, and there are monkeys in Guatemala. It's a rainforest area. So 2 like climbed on my head and started mauling me. One ran out of the forest and bit me. And I don't remember the other time. I might have blocked out the trauma, but monkeys are not friendly people.
How
or
small or how big were
things.
these? Because people don't realize if a monkey attacks you, it actually is one of the worst animals to try to fight. Like it is really bad.
Their little fingers. Oh, no, they were, what are they like? What's it, 2 feet? I don't know. Are they, if you stretch them out, maybe 3 feet? I don't know.
Okay. So you had the small guys. Why did you go to India?
They're smaller monkeys. Yeah.
What was so important?
It's not like it was an ape. It was not a gorilla that came out and no.
Yeah. So what was so important in India to go for 4 days, or to spend 4 days trying to get there?
I went to a conference. I was speaking at a conference, and it was going to be like I was going to be there like 3 days, but a fire. Well, first of all, there was like a nationwide.
Did your friend start the fire?
Yeah. We didn't start the fire. No, but there was like a nationwide weather system that like delayed me 24 hours. And then I get up to Chicago, and there's like a fire that was my dog barking. There was a fire in the like control tower. And so everything was grounded for 24 hours.
Oh my gosh. The control tower is like, I've heard is actually one of the most stressful jobs in America, is the person who like says when each plane lands. So imagine doing that and there's a fire. Okay. Why did you model in a French magazine?
So I took like a lot of photos of myself as a kid. That sounds weird. First
Sure
of all,
does.
no, like as a teenager, like I fancied myself a model. And so I just uploaded like a bunch of photos of myself to this like photo website. And then one day, like a magazine's like, "Hey, can we use your photo?" And it was a French magazine, and they used my photo, and I don't know what the article said, but they sent me a copy. And so I was like, that's cool. I should probably get someone French speaking to tell me what it says, because it might not be very nice, but I still count it as a win.
No, that's cool. So how old were you when you accidentally went to the premiere of Star Wars Episode 1? Because I feel like we're similar age, so you would have been pretty young.
I think I was 17. I'm 37.
Whoa, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, I just look remarkably good for my age.
You do.
And you look remarkably
yeah.
bad for your age.
We're both
Blake.
trending.
Yeah,
the
I was thinking,
opposite
are you 45? Is that's the vibe I'm getting.
Guys, this is a low point.
No, we were just like, my family, we were at this like cafe in some town in England. I don't remember which town. And then we heard like this orchestra playing Star Wars. We're like, what the heck is that? And we go over, and it's the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, like doing this cool premiere thing, like playing through the music of Star Wars to clips, and all the actors were there. It was really cool. So I decided to stick around, and my family went on back to whatever the apartment we had, and my brother and I stuck around, and it was really cool to see.
Were they playing Duel of the Fates? That's pretty epic.
I'm not a big enough Star Wars fan to know what the names of the songs are.
Jonathan, don't you understand that Church Tech's top like love is Star Wars / Lord of the Rings? I can't believe you.
I watch it out of respect for the culture, but Lord of the Rings I'm down with, but Harry Potter is that's my jam.
Well, I mean, sure. Like we're still in the age range wide enough that Harry Potter's like almost our second religion. So
I just went into Harry Potter because churches told me not to watch Harry Potter or read it. And anytime a church tells me not to do something, I'm generally like, there's probably something pretty good there. And then,
And how come
with
we've
movies, I'm not talking about sin. Okay. Can we just make that clear?
Jonathan is actually the biggest sinner we know.
Church is like, you shouldn't kill people. I'm like, Well,
Well,
now that
maybe
you
I'll
mention
set
it.
them on fire,
Yes. Oh, my friends will do it. I'll just watch.
or I'll sick a monkey on them.
And how come so many of our guests have been like models at one point?
So we've got Jonathan, we have Dave. I feel like there's at least one more. If
There
not
was at least
two
one more. Yeah.
This is
Man,
ridiculous.
Got some good looking people out there.
All right, Jonathan. So you seem a little spread thin. You got a lot going on. It's very clear from all of your, just in your intro, you've been doing a lot. So when we Googled you, it seemed like you're involved in a lot, like Sunday social, church stage designs. You're writing multiple books. You're putting us to shame. Like, tell us a bit more about
One of us, Blake.
We won't say which one. Tell us a bit more about what you're doing and how do you keep up? What do you enjoy the most, other than talking to us?
Yeah. No, I mean, I would do this all day and not make money if I could. No, I love starting projects. So like on Enneagram, I'm a 7. If you do Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTP. So like we tend to like flit around and do like 1,000 things and not finish, unfortunately.
Yes.
I have since learned how to finish projects, but
I hired people for that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you're looking at them.
But I love building things. So, my first thing I started was this website, Church Stage Design Ideas. Started a bunch of other projects, sold a few. Sunday Social was one I started 6 years ago. And then books are just a blast because you spend a lot of time on them and then you just launch them out and then they're done, right? Like you're not going to like tinker with a book, right? Like once the book is printed, the book is printed. So it's fun. It's fun to do all that stuff. And I don't feel like I'm spread thin, partially because I don't do meetings. Like we have a bunch of employees that work for Sunday Social and like I don't know the last time we had a meeting. Like we just don't do meetings, which tends to be the biggest drain on people's time I've found.
I was going to say, I recently saw an article that was like, it's in the hundreds of millions that they estimate what meetings are costing corporate America.
I think it's in the billions.
Which at Church Gear, we average like 1 meeting a week, 1.5 if you count all staff every 2 weeks. So I'll take it. 1.5. It's pretty good.
It's all these podcasts that are draining me, Blake.
Oh, me and Toby are about sick at the end of this. We've done like 8 in a week, and this room is full of dust because we were trying to grind the floor down. And so I think we're both pretty sick.
Let's clarify. You were grinding the floor down.
Yeah, Toby's not going to do
Wait,
hard
are
work.
you saying you guys were having like a dance party to like some really heavy
Totally.
R&B music? Is that a slang term for like
Yes.
working in the...
I do not want to be invited to a dance party with just Toby. No, there's a bunch of glue on the floor, and we're trying to get rid of it. It's been a lot, but
yeah. What's the thing that just really sparks your joy the most that you work on?
That I'm currently doing? I mean, to be honest, everything. If I don't love doing it, I generally try to sell it or get rid of it or just stop it. So writing books is a blast. Sunday Social is a blast. Church Stage Design Ideas is just fun. Really, probably, I think the thing that I'm probably enjoying the most is making reels on my like Jonathan Malm account on Instagram. It's fun because I get paid for it. I'm in their little like bonus thing for creators, but it's just fun to maybe make a video based on some traumatic experience that I had at church and realize that thousands of other people have the exact same experience. It's just kind of cool to see like the community that comes from whenever you kind of share what you experienced.
being a comedian is just group therapy on a thing that everyone has had, but you're the one person that can laugh at it, and then it invites everyone else to laugh at it. That's how I found you. I thought I was like, man, this guy is hysterical. So tell us about church stage designs. Like, what is that?
Yeah. So I started a blog a long time ago when I was still working at a church, just talking about the different things we were doing creatively. And one of those things was redesigning our stage, which stage design I didn't know was really a thing at the time. But we were in this building that was built in the 70s. The church was 50 years old. Everyone had, like, quote unquote, been to the church, but we changed a lot. In 50 years, the style of church changes. So part of us kind of revamping the image of the church was just changing people's expectations when they walked in. When they walked in, they would see, a traditional church with chandeliers and stained glass. And that was not representative of the type of worship music we were playing, the type of message. So we updated our stage, and I found that people were finding my blog. They were searching church stage design ideas. And a lot of people were finding that particular blog post. And I said, there's apparently some need there for that. I'm interested in that topic. So I just started going on Twitter, which was kind of in its heyday at the time. I know it's still going, but it's kind of like It has like a cult
Toxic.
following.
Yeah.
Well, it just has like a cult following now, where it's like back then, like Twitter was like the hot topic, right? Not the hot topic of the store, but you know what I'm saying. And so I went on there and started just like asking people if I could post up what they were doing, and just built this website, churchstagedesignIdeas.com. It's sort of this do-it-yourself DIY resource showing people what churches did, how much it cost, what materials they used, and it just, really caught on. Like a lot of people have seen that and gotten inspired by that, and it's been fun to do.
Have you had much experience seeing, I assume you have, just being in the space, but seeing the difference between pre-COVID and post-COVID, as far as all of a sudden every church has to live stream now. And so Are they putting more importance into the stage design, or is it just different now that they're trying to engage an online audience as well as an in-person?
Well, it's such a different thing now because, I think a lot of churches have really tried to focus on getting people to come back to the church, even to the point of like making the live stream kind of suck intentionally.
You think so?
That, oh yeah.
Hang on, do you theorize this, or has people told you they're doing that?
No, we've heard people talk about how they're trying to make the live stream less good. Not less good, but just like, or there's this situation, which is kind of worse. And some pretty large churches in America have done this, where they kind of shame people for not being in church, and like, but like, even if they're online, like just kind of shaming, like you should be in church, and like, not a great idea in my opinion. But the point is, so the live stream is happening, but for the churches that are valuing the live stream, what that means is it's gone a little bit away from the spectacle, which would be, this massive thing, to really creating more of a tight situation around the pastor, where, the pastor's not, speaking in this black hole, but instead there's this environment around them that, draws you in a little bit more. So it's changed the dynamic. It's focused a lot more on good lighting. It used to be the whole like rock and roll, dim lighting, hazy stuff. Now realizing that doesn't do great on video unless you have like really great lighting. So really focusing more on, front lighting and just a more engaging thing for video. So it's definitely changed the dynamic quite a bit, as well as LED walls have changed the dynamic of stage design. But yeah, LED walls and live stream have definitely changed the dynamic quite a bit.
Well, we've got an LED wall we're trying to sell. It's been sitting in Toby's garage for about 100 years, and I think he's going to kill someone if we don't get it tested and out of his garage.
Correction, my
so it's a
wife
really good
is going
technology.
to.
If it's
I was trying to give you a moment, Toby, if you wanted to have some catharsis, but you don't have to.
I mean, it's getting cold in Nashville, and now when my wife takes the kids to school at 7 a.m, she's getting a little disappointed that her car is parked outside when we have a perfectly good garage filled with an LED wall.
It's been on the to-do list for months, and I would love to do it, but if I test it, I'm going to break it.
Oh, yeah. You're not qualified for almost anything around here, Blacob.
I might have to start telling people that they're going to have to test it, but... Okay, so you've noticed then a shift away from the dim lighting, more focus on the pastor, tighter shots. Have you noticed anything in worship changing, like besides the lighting being more important, which we've been hearing a lot recently?
One thing that my church did, which I thought was really cool, and I would love to see a lot more churches do this, is instead of having the live worship, they actually kind of filmed separately during the week some more canned worship. With tighter shots. Maybe they went actually around town and filmed it outdoors, and really good quality. They did the recording, they mastered it afterwards. They checked, they adjusted levels. It was really good quality. And I would love to see more churches doing that, actually, because the live worship is cool, but for most churches, the quality is not going to be there. And especially as a former worship leader, I hated hearing myself recorded because, every imperfection is just magnified whenever you are in a live scenario on live stream with, bad quality mix. So I would love to see more churches do that. This really cool canned recording of their worship service, but in a different format.
And we're actually going to auto-tune your voice for this podcast because you're a little pitchy.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So, Jonathan, we go to a lot of churches. We see a lot of things. I remember just recently we were at Fellowship Church in Grapevine, and they had such a cool design in their auditorium for whatever series they were doing at that time. Do you have some specific examples of churches that you want to just give shout outs? Have you seen some really cool stuff recently?
Yeah, I mean, Transformation Church always does some really cool stuff. Again, they're more on the spectacle, which is awesome. That's kind of what they're going for. The fun thing about stage design, and what I discovered running this website for 12 years maybe or something, or no, 13 years, is that small churches with limited budgets can do some really cool stuff. Especially when you grab, corrugated plastic, Coroplast, and some LED tape. I've seen some really amazing stuff with those two materials. I love churches also that integrate their LED walls, since LED walls are becoming more popular, to kind of extend that LED wall out a little bit through using LED tape, especially pixel LED tape, where you can kind of get that media sort of mirrored out there. But yeah, I mean, Transformation Church has been fun just for the spectacle stuff. But I think there's just so many churches doing really cool things on a small scale that I'm like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, there is a lot of talent on the production team at Transformation Church. Those guys are super talented.
Yeah, these stage designs, they're really fun to see. We've actually got a buddy who does stage design. I saw it earlier this week for big artists, and he was just on the road. He's like, "Hey, look at this," and I'm like, "Man, this is nuts." Speaking of other things that's nuts, it's the amount of burnout that we're seeing. That was a terrible transition. Yeah. I was hoping someone was going to quip on that.
Ross, if you just want to cut out
speaking of nuts,
everything Blake has said on this episode, go for it.
Actually would be really funny. So you've got a new book coming out about Burning Bright, not out. How'd you do your research? How can our church tech teams build a healthier volunteer culture? Volunteer culture is such a fascinating topic to us because without your volunteers, you literally cannot do your job, but you don't want them to burn out. You don't want yourself to burn out. And you seem to be the guy who knows something about it, or at least your book title really convinced us. So tell us about it.
Yeah, no. So Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright is coming out next year. I don't actually know the month, but sometime in 2023. And that's really just a book about, it's almost like the opposite of burnout, right? So the problem with books about burnout is they tell you to like, go get a massage, go, take a year sabbatical, go, play golf every Friday. And like, if you're a leader in a church, you didn't sign up to lead because you like wanted to like take it easy, right? Most people, especially entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurial type pastors, you want to go hard. Like you want to do things, accomplish things. So the goal of this book was to help pastors, leaders, ministry leaders figure out how they can accomplish a lot of effective stuff, but not burn out. So basically, like, how can you be a high capacity leader for the long haul? And so a lot of that was just talking to pastors that have actually done this, talking to pastors who maybe regretted that they didn't do this or they did the wrong things. My co-writer, Jason, his wife is a counselor. So we leaned on her a lot for, verifying everything that we wrote. But yeah, just we've talked to a lot of pastors over the years. We've obviously been involved in ministry ourselves. And yeah, I think it's a really good book that I think will help pastors in the long haul. Now, your question about how you can help create a healthy volunteer culture, I have a book for that. The Volunteer Effect is probably going to be the best bet on that, which is literally, we talked about how to get, keep, and motivate your volunteers. And a part of that is helping them avoid burnout. Like, how do you protect a volunteer from burnout? And there's a few different things, right? Like, first of all, burnout happens when people don't know how to say no. So part of our goal as people who lead volunteers is I kind of count it as like, you're almost like you're like a volunteer bodyguard. You're protecting your volunteers. You're protecting them from, if they're the sound tech, you're protecting them from, people's opinions. That one person who goes back and be like, it's too loud. You're like, well, that's how we run it, So whenever I was leading my tech team at church, part of my goal was just like fending off comments from pastors, fending off comments from the congregation, and just protecting them from that, helping them say no, saying, hey, I'm actually okay as a leader. If you tell me no, I'm not going to just say that's okay, but then act like it's not okay. I'm going to let you say no and like celebrate the fact that you're going on vacation. I'm going to celebrate the fact that you know, wanted to go to a concert on Saturday night. So you're probably not going to be able to serve on Sunday morning. And just a lot of it is just empowering your people to say no, which I think a lot of times it's hard to do because we need people to serve. And so we don't want them to say no. And people get that vibe from us, like they're going to disappoint us if they say no, and then they don't say no, and then they get burnt out.
So besides from burnout, talk to us a little bit about just building a healthy culture in a tech team. How can our tech directors, you know, just really have their volunteers feel like they belong to something exciting and special?
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing. This is where I think the churches get it wrong the most, or leaders get it wrong the most, is they focus on the task over the mission. So, I mean, this is probably the example I love using the most because it's so absurd, but like, let's say I run the welcome team, right? And I need parking lot volunteers. So the natural thing to do is say, hey, we need people to help park cars. Would you want to do that? And like, I'm sorry, I live in Texas. It's 100 degrees in the summer. No, I don't want to be outside parking cars. I park my car every day going to the grocery store. Like, I know how to park a car. Like, that seems like an unnecessary volunteer role, right? But instead, if we frame it as, no, what we're doing is we're the first face people say when they roll into the parking lot. We're helping them feel confident about where they park. We're taking some of that anxiety away. Like, you frame it in terms of like what you're doing as far as the mission of the church or the mission of your volunteer team. So the same thing with tech. Like, hey, do you want to run sound? Not super compelling, but like, hey, do you want to help actually like lead worship? Like, the worship is going to either suck or go well, depending on your ability to run sound. If people can hear the vocals clearly, if they can feel the music surrounding them, so they feel more confident singing, if it's pleasant to the ears and not just like horrible to the ears. So framing it in terms of the mission, the actual heart of what's going on, instead of just like pushing buttons or making pretty things, like those aren't very compelling roles. But if you frame it in terms of the mission, you're going to be much more effective, and volunteers are going to feel like it's important what they're doing.
So really stressing the why behind you're doing it, not like push this fader, but let's go back to the real reason why we do this and how we are serving the body at large.
And you have to remind yourself that as a leader, because it is so easy to, you know, I'm looking at my planning center roster and I see, you know, 8 X's that need to be filled. And again, it can be so easy to focus on, oh, I need a lighting tech. And so I'm focusing on that role that needs to happen instead of saying, no, lights are actually, I'm leading worship through lights. Like, visually lead what the band does for my ears, I'm doing visually.
Well, and I really like that tip too, because it's not creating another thing for them to do. It's giving a tip on adjusting something they're already doing. Like, talk in terms of vision, frame in terms of vision, not in terms of task, because you're already going to have to talk about the task, but framing it differently can make all the difference.
And thank God, because if you work in a church, like, Sunday is relentless. Like, it keeps coming. Like, you can't stop it. And so having more things you need to do is going to be devastating. But just tweaking those small tweaks that you do are going to make such a big difference.
Totally. Actually, I read Atomic Habits a couple months ago, and it was like astounding at the difference like a 1% improvement can make anywhere. Especially on something like Sunday morning, where it's a well-oiled machine that does keep happening. How long were you on staff at a church?
Oh, sheesh. I don't know. Went to college, started working in college, and then when I graduated, so probably 8-9 years.
Worship leader all that time?
Worship leader. I mean, I was like the everything, right? I think I started working with the church when it was 300. It grew to about 1,000 before I moved away. So in that time, I was, you know, the person doing the media team, whatever, like, you know, duplicating like the message on CD at the time, and then running the website, and then social media, started getting in doing social media, doing the tech team, doing worship. I think that might be the gamut. And then getting ultimately into like hospitality. But done a little bit of everything, and volunteers are a key part of that and everything that I've done, especially the more I do, the more I need to lean on volunteers to get things done.
Toby, I think we just found a new title, The Everything.
I've been that guy, Blake. It's
That's
called church planting.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Or
So-
being a pastor's kid. That'll make you the everything as well.
Yep.
So one of the things you learned about being the everything was doing social media. So tell us a bit more about Sunday Social. Like, have you seen any actual tech teams doing some really fun stuff with it, like their social media presence? I've seen a couple of churches' tech teams have social accounts that aren't the churches. Like it's literally the church's tech team account, which I always think is fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's that it all comes down to what you're trying to accomplish through a social media account, right? Like if you're trying to help encourage other churches to, this is what we did, almost like in the form of an old school blog, right? Like you share your idea and then let other churches ask questions and get inspired by it. Or what some churches do is they just created a social media account for their actual teams, right? To just, hey, here's some cool stuff. Here's some inspo. Here's some things to help us keep all on the same page. Really, probably Facebook groups would be the most effective way to do that because they're much more tight knit and you can actually create conversation a little bit more. Facebook's a little bit passe for some generations, but most even Gen Z have like a Facebook account. They just use it for like just a more official business that they have to accomplish.
Facebook has turned into their LinkedIn.
Literally, yeah. It's like I have to have a Facebook account. I don't use it. I don't want to see my boomer, parents, their posts, but like I need to use it for like events and stuff like that, right? So Facebook groups are great for that. Instagram would probably be more for reaching out to other churches to help inspire them as well.
So what does Sunday Social do though?
Yeah, so Sunday Social is basically we create 4 graphics a day. That's like scriptures, quotes, interactive questions, and churches can get access to those for their own social media account. So it's almost like a Netflix for social media for your church. So let's say, I'm at Grace Avenue Church. I'm the communications director. I need to figure out what to post on our social media account. I sign up for Sunday Social. I have a huge library of like 10,000 graphics I can use with caption ideas, really good content, amazing design, and I can download as much as I want, whatever I want, and post it up on social media to use for our church.
That's fun. That's hilarious hearing the boomer avoidance. Toby, do you think people are calling us boomers yet, you and I?
Well, my parents are literally boomers, but I'm thinking like, oh yeah, Facebook, that's where I go. I'm like, oh no.
I think your dad might be too old to be a boomer, Toby. I think he's
No, he is a boomer.
Sure he's not silent generation?
No. 100% sure. We'll look this up afterwards, Blake. I'll teach you little millennial something.
Oh no.
One thing that I'm noticing that the Gen Z is doing to millennials is, and this is so nefarious, is they will, especially my sister-in-law, she will refer to me as Generation X. And I'm not Generation X. And I don't know why that irks me so much, but she's like, oh, that's your generation, right? I'm like, no, I'm a millennial. Like I'm proud to be a millennial. But I think Gen Z is just trolling the whole world by just like calling people boomer indiscriminately, calling people Generation X indiscriminately. So watch out for that. If someone calls you Gen X, unless you are Gen X, which, I'm sorry. I feel really sorry for that generation.
I fall in the crack, which is like, I don't belong to any generation. They call us Exillennials. It's like 77 to 81.
And
Ooh.
What's the insult to be a Gen X? They have nothing known about them. Like, about millennials and Gen Z and boomers. Gen X is like the least talked about one.
Blake, you're just unaware.
Did you see there was a documentary recently on Netflix about, what was that famous festival in the 70s? And they tried to bring it back.
Woodstock,
yeah. So they brought back
Festival.
Woodstock 99.
Yeah.
And like, basically, I don't know if you've seen the documentary or if you knew about the story, but basically all these Gen X people got together and they literally like set the festival on fire. Like Lord of the Flies. Like it was just a
And was that
mess.
your friends?
That was Generation X. I'm not Generation X. But that's so representative of that generation where it's like Rage Against the Machine. And then now they all have corporate jobs and they like are total sellouts, right? Like that's Gen X, unfortunately.
Yeah, Blake, Gen X was, you can't sell out. It's so much cooler to just not do anything than to sell out.
The MTV generation, when MTV was music, like they were, that like all the like the shaky camera footage and stuff, like that's Gen X. Millennials are like, we all think that we're celebrities and that everyone needs to know everything about us. Like that's millennials, which is really horrible, but I very much identify with that.
I also feel like Gen Z is just the pessimist. I just feel like they're mad and sulking and above it all.
That's every generation. Every generation is mad and sulking. Gen X was the worst about that, though. They hated everyone that wasn't them. Sorry if you're Gen X. I'm like crapping all over your generation. I'm saying to the listeners, but that is Gen X.
Wow, maybe the next book, Jonathan, needs to be Connecting the Generations, how a Gen X church tech director can connect to his Gen Z volunteers.
And do you have a next book idea that's taking shape or coming to the forefront?
Yeah. So, I do a lot of writing with this guy, Jason Young, and we have a few different ideas. Not sure which one's going to stick. Really what we do typically is we just tell our ideas to our publisher and see what they like. And then if they like it, it makes it a lot easier for us to work with them because they know they can sell it. We know we can deliver on it. And it's just a nice partnership. We work with Baker Books. But yeah, really though, I'm starting to write fiction, which is a lot of fun. It's just, again, like I can't do the same project over and over and over again. So that's one thing that I'm interested in doing is trying to write novels, which I tend to fall maybe in the more like thriller/horror genre, which is not a great thing if you help churches. So I'm creating like a pen name for that type of book. But yeah, I just writing's fun.
I think you could totally focus a thriller/horror story around a Sunday morning service in a lot of our text mind.
Oh yeah, that you could write it like it's a horror, but it's just an actual service, but you write it like that.
Yeah, everything goes wrong.
Well, speaking of keeping stuff from going wrong, Jonathan, what would be a tech takeaway you could give our church tech directors that would help their Sunday service be better every week?
Yeah, I would say be willing to sacrifice a Sunday for the long term, which is terrifying. But let's say, I think a lot of what people who work in churches experience is that they feel like every Sunday has to be 100%. It has to be the best Sunday ever. It has to be consistently amazing. And let's say you have a volunteer coming in that is at 50% of where you are. The natural thing is to say, well, if every Sunday has to be 100%, I have to do everything because nobody can take my place. Nobody can run things as well as I can. So you wear yourself out and you don't bring up the next leaders. So that person at 50%, it's probably going to take them maybe 4 or 5 Sundays of running church at like 60, 50% in order to get to maybe 80%, 90%, something that's much more acceptable. So I would encourage you, talk to your pastor and say, hey, we're working with a new person. I believe this person has a lot to offer in the future, but there might be some hiccups this Sunday. And I'm just giving them a chance to learn and to grow. And I think that's what I would encourage you. Don't think every Sunday needs to be 100%. Otherwise, you're never going to raise the next group of leaders.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's definitely a common thing we hear about holding on too tightly to everything, but ultimately we can't do everything, which means there's going to be a couple miscues when you're training someone up. So where would you give people some cues to come and find you, Jonathan Malm? What would you plug?
Yeah, hit me up on Instagram at Jonathan Malm. Go to jonathanmalm.com. You can Google me. All of those things will show up if you Google Jonathan Malm as well. But yeah, just connect with me there. Instagram's probably the thing that I'm loving the most right now. I'll probably get back into TikTok. I was in TikTok for a while and developed a bit of a following there, but then I just lost the interest in it. But I'll probably get back there. But right now, Instagram's where I'm at.
Listen to this millennial thinking he's a celebrity. No, that's great, man. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Blake, I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but Jonathan and I actually talked, and the whole intention of this episode was to bully you.
Oh, well, it didn't work because I feel great.
Well, I'm glad you feel great. Is there a way for you to help our listeners now feel great?
Well, yeah, especially if you're Gen X. If you're Gen X, I feel like everything kind of came down on you today unexpectedly. So if you want to get 11% off at churchgear.com, that would feel pretty great. I mean, if it was an $11,000 item, you're going to save $1,000, $1,100. So that's math.
That's wrong.
No. What do you mean? Are you serious?
$1,100 would be 11% off a $10,000 order, not an $11,000 order. Math is hard
it's
for millennials.
$100 per 1,000.
Math is hard for millennials.
Okay, whatever. They're on the calculator app right now. They're seeing I'm right.
Please blow up Blake for being wrong on social media.
Use code. Yeah, we're talking to you, Todd Elliott. Use code podcast for 11% off at churchgear.com.